There we go. Okay. Go ahead and click into this slideshow. Again, this has pretty much my explanations word for word in them. Uh, they're usually a little bit longer than what I actually say.
Are you serious?
Okay. So as far as the mechanics go, Trinity Seeker is pretty much the same as normal mode, just a lot faster. This is the hardest boss for a lot of vets, because even though for other bosses you can learn the mechanics, Trinity Seeker will always be fast.
Are you serious?
And there are lots of points where if you greed, you just kind of die. So yeah, make sure that you are focusing on doing mechanics over pressing GCDs, because your damage if you die is 0. Okay, I'm gonna go and put out some markers. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the markers. This is what I'm going to be calling with. For these markers, I will call certain mechanics based on the markers or based on the boss's facing. So for example, if I say to the right, right, left, left of the boss, you would go to the right, then the right, then the left, then the left. I think it's easiest for me to call based on the boss facing because it doesn't depend on like the boss being crooked. But in the event that I feel that boss relative calls are not appropriate, I will instead use a marker. For example, I might say something like 3, 1, 2, 4. If I call that, then you are going to go towards the 3 marker, then the 1 marker, then the 2 marker, then the 4 marker.
Are you serious?
As far as the actual mechanics go, the big one is Fourfold Mercy. This is a telegraphed attack. The boss is going to show 4 different slashes and then execute them very quickly. I will call this safe spots, boss relative, or using the markers, whichever I think is more appropriate. So as long as you follow callouts, you should be fine. Just remember that the slashes are much faster than they appear. So if you have orange under your feet, you are probably already dead. After Fourfold Mercy is usually a Seasons of Mercy mechanic. This is basically 4 mechanics back to back. First of all, there is a set of line AoEs on the floor with a gaze. You'll need to look away from one of the 1, 2, 3, or 4 markers while dodging the ice. After that is another set of line AoEs, followed by a bloom that doubles in size. This bloom is going to be about the size of the arena on one of the inner cardinals, so you're going to need to move to the opposite side of the arena from the bloom.
Are you serious?
With that said, another big mechanic is the Ifrit dashes. The boss is going to spawn 4 clones on the outside of the arena with some huge explosions. After that, there is a set of line AoEs from the edge from these clones, so I will tell you to follow the clones around in the order that they spawn.
Are you serious?
Final thing I'm going to talk about is Baleful Blade. This is a cast bar that calls for you to be in front of or behind one of these barricades. If I tell you to hide or get in front of one of these barricades, please ensure that you are doing so. If you're getting in front of it, you're getting like here, where I'm standing, and if you're hiding behind it, you're getting back here. At this time, if you have any questions, please ask them. Trinity Seeker has a lot of mechanics that I can just kind of call for you. As long as you are good at following directions, you should be fine.
Are you serious?
Now before we pull the boss, I'm going to go over lost action usage. So, for stuff like Font of Power, or Font of Magic that have 2-minute cooldowns, you're going to use them off cooldown. So anytime your Font of Power or Font of Magic comes up, you're probably going to use it. The only exception is when I tell you to hold your 2 minutes, in which case, just wait for me to call for you to use those 2 minutes, and you'll rip those. There are also 90-second cooldowns like Chain Spell and Banner of Honored Sacrifice. These cooldowns are going to be held to be used with Font of Power or Font of Magic every 2 minutes. Please make sure for stuff like Chain Spell and Banner of Honored Sacrifice, you are holding them for your 2-minute burst, as that is when they're most effective. Having 5 really good uses of stuff like Chain Spell or Banner is much better than having 6 kind of bad uses. Another 90-second cooldown is Dervish. You should be using Dervish every 2 minutes. Try not to use it off cooldown as you will very quickly run out of charges, and you will also offset it from your 2-minute burst, and that is where buffs are most effective. Finally is Cure 4. Cure 4 is a very powerful heal. If you want to test it out, have your healer use an AoE heal and then use Cure 4 afterwards. Yeah, a white mage Medica, a white mage with 10 sucker using Medica is 6,000. Meanwhile, a lost Cure 4 with 10 sucker is 42,000. Cure 4 is many times better than a white mage or an astrologian or any shield healer using their AoE heals, so please make sure you're using it after any sources of damage. It is also a powerful bravery buff. It gives your entire party 10% more damage, so make sure you're trying to keep that bravery buff active on your party. If you have any questions as far as actions goes, please ask. If you are ready, please come stand on the C waymark. While the duelist is getting ready, I will go ahead and put out some markers for Dahu. These are the only markers that you will ever need, okay? All you have to do in this fight is avoid the B, the A, and the D. Make sure you stay out of the orange puddles, don't stand in bad.
Are you serious?
Again, this is not for Dahu. Do not approach Dahu, don't even acknowledge Dahu. Every spot is assigned, perfect. That works. We have one person on each. If you are standing on one of these waymarks, you will be using Reflect or Light Curtains during the final phase. I will let you know when to slot in Reflect, if you were using the actual action, which, I mean, why would you? But also, just in case, um, go ahead and make sure to look in my thread. There is an infographic on where each one of these stands.
Are you serious?
The marker that you're standing on will roughly correspond to one of the markers in the arena. You will reflect one orb and then reflect the other. Very simple. Just make sure to check this diagram, for which spot you are standing on. Healers, once you know that you are good, please step up towards the arena. Once you know where you're reflecting and you're good, go ahead and step towards the arena. If you have any questions, please ask them. Okay, perfect. Healers know what they're doing. We already have a dispel. Let me save these over my Ubu markers. Okay. Perfect. If you look out on the arena, you can see that the orbs will roughly correspond to where the markers are. Um, so just remember which marker you are on and look in the diagram in chat or look at the markers on the ground.
Are you serious?
Now with that said, let me go over all the actual mechanics. First of all, healers, this is where you will need Steel Sting and Spellforge. I ask all healers to bring both. Please go ahead and discuss in your parties who is using which one. One healer will need Steel Sting, one healer will need Spellforge. If you are the only healer in your party, you will just slot in whichever is needed whenever I call it out. Alternatively, if you really want, you can slot both, but I recommend just waiting to see which is needed and then slotting in whichever is needed. Additionally, healers, you will need to use Light Curtains or the Reflect action. Please make sure you have, if you're using Light Curtains, make sure they are on your hotbar. You can drag them from your holster onto your hotbars. Or I will tell you when to swap over your Steel Sting Spellforge for any other action, namely Reflect. Finally, currently we have our two main tanks, myself and Carter. I need tanks on 1 and 2. Please split yourself somewhat evenly between 1 and 2. We should have at least one other tank. Again, all tanks, yep, all tanks, please split yourself between 1 and 2. Okay, perfect. If you're a tank on 1 and 2, then during the final phase, you will be fighting for aggro for an orb. There will be an orb that spawns in either the north or the south. If you're on 1, you're going to head towards the north and fight for the north orb's aggro. If you're in the south, you are fighting for the south orb's aggro. Your job is to fight for aggro, and if you get a red spike above your head, you're gonna pop your invuln. If you get no marker above your head, hold your invuln and fight for the next one. Oh, do you mean this one? But yeah, if you're on 1, you're gonna head to the north orb, fight for that aggro. If you're on 2, you're gonna fight for the south orb's aggro. Tanks, if you understand what you're doing, go ahead and move back to the mass in the party. If you have any questions, please ask them. Okay, perfect. Dawn, do you have any questions? Okay, perfect. I'm gonna put back out the markers, and I'm gonna start actually explaining mechanics. But before I do that, please go ahead and jump around. Queen's Guard mechanics are very long, and they involve a lot of explanations because a lot of these mechanics return later on. Please make sure that if you're new, you're paying attention, as a lot of these mechanics, again, show up during the final fight.
Are you serious?
Okay, first of all, start of the fight, we're just gonna pull the bosses together. They're gonna do a couple raid wights, until they either do 2 raid wights or drop below 80% HP. Just use your burst to burn them below 80% HP. Once they both go away, we will start the first phase with the warrior and the knight. Probably the most important mechanic during this phase is the Steel Sing Spellforge mechanic. This is why I ask healers to have Steel Sing Spellforge. During this, the bosses will make themselves immune to either physical or magical damage. I will tell you to apply Steel Sing or Spellforge, yellow or purple, to your parties. Technically, some jobs only need one or the other. If you're wondering who needs what, you can go ahead and refer to this infographic. Alternatively, just apply it to everyone. There are notably jobs that do mixed damage. For example, Paladin, Dark Knight, Ninja, Reaper, and Bard all do physical damage, but do have magical abilities. And in reverse, Red Mages deal primarily magical damage. However, they have significant physical damage as well. So if the need arises, make sure they get whichever is needed. Now that is Steel Sting Spellforge. One final thing about Steel Sting Spellforge, I highly recommend everyone to make a macro with the following lines. You can right click off the Steel Sting Spellforge buffs. However, that runs the risk of you accidentally clicking off something like your Pure Essence. Yes, you can click that off. Please make sure, unless you really know what you're doing, go ahead and just use this macro, create a quick macro, and put it somewhere that is easily accessible. But yeah, that's Steel Sting Spellforge. It's pretty much just a healer mechanic ideally. Just make sure you have that macro available. For the main mechanics of the fight, first up is Reversal of Forces. This is a cast that that splits the party basically in two. Half the party will need to resolve the mechanic one way, and the other half will need to do it the other. I will call for you to check for a tether during this mechanic. You can also look in your debuffs for a debuff that looks like this. I will then call for tethers to go to one place and everyone else to the other. Please make sure that please make sure to check for the tether and follow directions. If you would like to try and solve this mechanic for yourself, there's a helpful infographic for the bomb mechanic. Um, you can also use the mnemonic double or nothing go big, but I recommend just listening to calls as I usually get it right. Now that is the warrior's primary mechanic, but what about the knight? The knight's primary mechanic is its sword omen and shield omen. This basically telegraphs that you either need to go in for a mechanic or out for a mechanic. Sword omen is very simple. In pretty much every case, it's just a point-blank AoE. This will usually tell you to just get away from the center of the arena. However, shield omen is a little more complicated. The first time you see shield omen, it will be a knockback from the center. The boss is going to knock you and a big explosive ball towards the center, and you will need to get knocked away from the ball to the correct position. I recommend positioning yourself at an acute angle from the ball in the center and the knight. So if the orb was right here in the center and the knight was at 4, I would want to get knocked back towards like C or D, not towards 2. Please make sure you are getting knocked away from the orb, but also make sure that you are not in the knight's path, as anyone who is in the knight's path will also get a ruin stat. The second time you see Shield Omen, it's much simpler. It's just the donut AoE on the boss, but 3 sides of the boss will also be unsafe. So you'll have to go towards the cardinal that is safe, under the boss's hitbox. That's pretty much it for phase 1 as far as the personal mechanics. Phase 2 is a lot simpler. There's basically one mechanic that you need to know, but it is easily the one where most new people die. So with that said, let's go over the one main mechanic of phase 2 with the gunner and the soldier, and that is the weak spot aka show your hole aka Mustadia mechanic aka analysis. During these mechanics, you will get a ring that looks like this. This ring will leave 3 sides vulnerable with 1 side with no vulnerability.
Are you serious?
You can also tell which side the gap is on by looking at your debuffs. This debuff will show that one side has a blue marking, so you just want to point that side towards any incoming damage. Namely, there will be a raid wipe from the center of the arena, followed by a set of line AoEs. During these weak spot mechanics, make sure that you first resolve the AoEs that are happening, and then point your gap towards the center of the arena, and then point it to a turret on the wall once that raid wipe goes off. Again, it is of utmost importance that you don't get hit on the unsafe sides. Please prioritize resolving mechanics over doing damage. That's pretty much all there is to the gunner and soldier. Everything else can just be called for you. Once you kill the gunner and soldier, you will enter the final phase 3 with the ethereal wards. This is very similar to normal mode. This is a DPS race to kill the wards before they kill you. However, in Savage mode, there are a couple other things added onto it. First up is Coat of Arms. Coat of Arms is a cast bar that will put a hexagonal shield on 2 sides of the boss. Please make sure you are not attacking a side of the boss that has a spiky hexagon. That is the wrong chat. Please make sure that you are not attacking a side of the ward that has a spiky shield like that. Additionally, there are the aura spheres and the spiritual spheres. The spiritual spheres we already went over. You're gonna pop reflect, stand under the orb, pop reflect again, stand under the next one. I'm gonna go and repost the infographic so it is easier to access. Again, please double check that you are in the correct spot, and reflecting your 2 orbs.
Are you serious?
Additionally is the aura spheres. I will ask during the final phase for slimes to go north and golems to go south. You're gonna go kill the aura sphere at the north or south before continuing with the wards. This aura sphere, if left alive, will randomly start killing people. So it's very important that they are killed, and tanks fight over aggro so it doesn't kill the highest in aggro. That's pretty much all I have for Queensguard. Again, if you have any questions, please ask them. Make sure you wiggle around and come jump on me when you're ready. Okay, so during the tether mechanic, you will only ever see your tether, and if the ground is tethered. So you will never see other people's tethers. You will only ever see the tethers that are environmental and the tethers on you. This is the last boss before our break, so please, we're going to use any lost actions we have left, as we're going to be reslotting any lost actions at Trinity Avowed.
Are you serious?
Step across the purple line once you're ready. There's nothing to explain. This is a trash fight. Check and see if there is anyone who does not have shell. If they don't have shell, go and give it to them, except for Cam. Don't give Cam shell. But if you do have protect one, you know.
Are you serious?
But yeah, everyone has shell, so go ahead and slot in your lost ether shield if you're the ether shield tank at this time. If you are not the ether shield tank, slot your new set of actions. You should need a new banner of honored sacrifice and font of power.
Are you serious?
Again, you want to have as many charges of everything as possible. Cure 4's runs you're also reslotting here as you do before every major fight. Now let's get to mechanics. First and foremost, the core mechanic of Trinity Avowed is the hot and cold temperature mechanic. This is basically the core of every mechanic that will happen during this fight. During the first set of mechanics, you will get one of the temperatures. You'll get a debuff that looks like one of these. It'll be a hot 1, a hot 2, cold 1, or cold 2. You'll need to get hit by a mechanic that has the opposite temperature of your temperature, to even it out to 0 by the end of the mechanic. However, in the second half of the fight, once we go through each weapon once, there will also be the elemental brands. You'll also get a debuff that looks like this. These debuffs will apply at the end of the mechanic. So now, instead of trying to have the opposite of your temperature by the end of the mechanic, you want to have the opposite of your brand. If you need a little infographic to help explain that to you, I recommend looking at this. It shows what temperature you need by the end of the mechanic with each brand. But the basic idea is you want to end up with the opposite of your brand. So if you have an Ice 1 brand, you want to end up with your temperature at Fire 1 by the end of the mechanic.
Are you serious?
If you would like a table that shows each possible brand and temperature combination, I recommend checking this one out. But it is a lot of info. I don't expect you to memorize it. Just kind of keep in mind that you want to end up with the opposite of your brand by the end of the mechanic. Now, with that said, I'm going to get into talking about the major phases. I'm going to go from easiest to hardest. So the easiest one is probably the staff phase. This is very similar to the staff phase from normal mode. However, instead of there being a safe spot in the center, there is no safe spot.
Are you serious?
During staff phase, you'll need to get in the center to avoid the proximity damage, and you'll be given a temperature. You'll need to go to the meteor that is opposite your temperature. During the first staff phase, there is a quick march mechanic. You'll need to get quick march to the meteor that resolves your temperature. This quick march will send you 2 squares or 3 squares if you are sprinting. Also, if there's any ninjas, it sends you like 2.5 squares roughly. So just be careful. I don't think there are any ninjas, but yeah, this quick march sends you 2 squares roughly. So for example, if I was on this square and I was getting force march to the right, I would end up 1 square, 2 squares, I would end up right here.
Are you serious?
The easiest way to resolve this force march, okay, is to sit in the center, hold right and left click so that your character is moving straight forward as well as S, and then turn your camera so that the force march is pointing at the meteor. So again, just turn your camera so that the force march is facing your meteor, and then just walk forward, and you will easily be sent 2 squares towards that meteor. During the second stop phase, there is no force march, but it adds the brand mechanic, so you'll need to not only even out your temperature, but also even out your brand. Additionally, again, instead of the force marches, there's going to be a set of line AoEs from the outside of the arena. There will only be a total of 4 tiles that are safe to stand on. I will try and call them out as best as possible, but you can also look for vets who are jumping on the tile that is safe. So that is the staff phase. Are there any questions about staff phase? Yeah, that is, the boat phase comes later. Oh, one final thing to note about staff phase. During the staff phase, healers should not arise at any point. If you arise during the staff phase, there's a good chance you just immediately die. So again, try not to arise anyone. And especially towards the end of the fight, if you get a late staff 2, do not use Limit Break 3 during staff 2. Now that's staff phase. That is the easiest phase that she has. Next up, I'm going to talk about sword phase. During sword phase, the boss is going to go untargetable. If you know if this phase is coming, it's a good idea to either burn all your cooldowns if possible, or hold them.
Are you serious?
If you would like an overhead video of what I'm about to explain, there is a short video in my thread that you can watch that explains, or that shows what I'm about to explain. So, during the sword phase, first of all, I'm going to be calling with these markers. During the sword phase, there will always be one square that is getting hit by nothing. This square will either be on the 1, the 2, the 3, or the 4. I will call it the safe spot. In order to resolve your temperature, you must go 1 cardinal from the safe spot. So for example, if the safe spot was 1, you would be able to resolve your temperature on the 4 or the 2 squares. However, if you were on the 3 square, you would instantly die. Being diagonal from the safe square in any way will immediately kill you. So please ensure that you are directly north, south, east, or west of the safe square. If you're new, during the first sword phase, what I'm going to recommend you do, okay? The boss is going to do 2 sets of slashes, so there's going to be the first set of slashes, then the second. If you're new, during the first set of slashes, don't even worry about resolving your temperature, okay? Just go to the safe square and then find, look at where all is getting slashed.
Are you serious?
Okay, then second sword phase is a little more complicated. The mechanics themselves haven't changed. All that's different is you now have a brand. And with this brand, it may require you to get hit twice. So for example, if you had a Fire 1 temperature and a Fire 2 brand, you would have to get hit twice. You would have to get hit by an Ice 1 and an Ice 2 slash in order to balance out. However, it's very important that you don't get hit at the same time. Okay, if you need an Ice 1 and an Ice 2, go to an Ice 1 on the first slash and then an Ice 2 on the second. The other thing I'm going to recommend is that if you're new, during the second sword phase, use the first set of slashes to resolve your temperature. So during the first set of slashes, just get your temperature to 0, and then use the second set of slashes to resolve your brand. So for example, if I had Ice 1 temperature, I would get hit by a Fire 1 sword on the first set of slashes. I would then get hit by the opposite of my brand. So example, if I had an Ice 2 brand, during the second set of slashes, I would get hit by a Fire 2 sword. Are there any questions about the sword phase? Again, don't feel bad about asking questions. Questions are how we learn.
Wouldn't wouldn't intentionally getting hit, wouldn't that give us a mark?
No. So, during this fight, there are very few attacks that give you a ruin stack. Um, pretty much all of the temperature mechanics will not give you a ruin stack. The only things that will is the weapon AoEs, so like the front, back, and out, as well as the line AoEs from the outside of the arena.
Alright, thank you.
It should also be noted that from this point forward, it is no longer a thrice come ruin. It is now a twice come ruin. So if you get hit by 2 avoidable mechanics, you will die after 2 of them instead of 3. But yeah, if you want a visual example of the sword phase, there is a short video that shows it visually. Watch that real quick. Okay, finally going into the bow phase. The bow phase is probably the hardest one for new people. It's probably where the most people are going to die, especially if we see the second bow phase. So the bow phase is kind of similar to normal mode. There's going to be a big wall of fire. During the first bow phase, in order to dodge this wall of fire, you're going to need to use a quick march. What you can do with this quick march is stand in the center of the arena, and then the firewall will come from either B or D. I will tell you to quick march to the opposite of the firewall. All you need to do is then point your arrow toward that safe tile. Since the forest march sends you 2 squares, going from the middle of the arena towards the safe side is very easy.
Are you serious?
Once we get that, we get the really hard part. The really hard part of bow phase is the ladder game. Now, if you're used to normal mode, you will know that there is usually the highlights that show where the arrows are going. That does not exist here. What you have to do is you have to trace down the arrows. The arrows will always take every turn available to it. So if you have an arrow, you can just trace it down, and every time it hits a corner, it will always take that corner. If you'd like a little graphic that shows how to do this, there's one by June Bob himself in my thread. There's also an overhead video. Just keep in mind it does have the tracer lines to visually show like how they move. Those will not be there.
Are you serious?
But yeah, during the first bow phase, you're just gonna have your temperature. Very easy. You just have to play the pipe game. However, during the second one, you're gonna get a ton of debuffs. So you're gonna get your temperature, but you're also gonna get your brand. On top of that, you're gonna get a force march. So not only do you have to figure out which arrow neutralizes your brand and temperature, you also have to find where to force march. It is a lot. It's where the most new people will probably die if we see it. So just kind of be ready. Again, if you die, you die. No big deal. Every death is a learning experience. At this time, please come jump. Please come up to the Seaway marker if you are ready. If you have any questions, please ask them. Very important to note that, first of all healers should have at least 1 dispel left. So some of you are just liars, but that's okay. Yeah, I see you, Wobble.
Are you serious?
But if you slot in dispel here, it's very important that you don't slot over it, as we will also need the spells for Queen. Again, if you were slotting in dispel here, please do not slot over it. We will need those dispels for Queen. Okay. Again, I'll go over what every role is doing in just a moment. Let me put out the real markers first and foremost. There we go. Okay. So welcome to Stygimoloch Lord, the boss that is not a boss. So this boss is not really actually a boss. This boss is pretty much just an ads phase. Everything else the boss does is very unlikely to kill you as long as you are focused up. So we're gonna devote all of our resources to the ads phase. What this means is that if you have extra charges of Font of Power or Font of Magic, if you have extra charges of Chain Spell, every Rend Armor, every Cure 4, all of your 2-minute burst is going to go onto the ads phase. When the boss is active, you don't have to worry about using Font of Power, Blood Rage, anything like that. Just focus all your damage on the ads phase. And then use the Lord itself afterwards to build your gauge. Marble hitting that shit down. But yeah, again, focus all your Focus everything you have on the ads phase. That is where the real threat lies. Now let me actually talk a little bit about the ads phase. During the ads phase, the Minotaur itself is going to go untargetable. It will spawn 4 ads. The ads will need to be drawn. The ads will get super fast if they're close to anything else, but as long as they are separated and kept away from the middle, they will just be very slow and easily kiteable. The tanks who are assigned 1, 2, 3, 4 at the start of ads phase will turn on their stance and kite their Minotaur around. Once you have aggro on your Minotaur, you're going to drag it out and around. Ideally, you want to drag it around 1 cardinal before the first cast bar. So again, drag it out and then start dragging it to the next cast bar, or to the next cardinal. Don't move it too fast so that it gets close to the center, but don't move it too slow as you may leave it behind when you have to go forward. That first cast bar is entrapment. This will summon traps between each of the cardinals. Everything that is not white on the arena ground as you look out ahead of you is going to be a death wall. All of this purple, bluish brick is going to turn into a death wall that will instantly kill you. There will be a ring on the inside and a ring on the outside. If you were a healer, you were going to stand on the inside ring. You are going to be dispelling the balls of earth. These have a stone skin on them that must be dispelled. Then you can one-tap the ball of earth with just your dot or a normal GCD. Everyone who is not a healer will be on the outside ring. If you are currently not assigned a role, you are going to be standing on 3 pretty much the entirety of ads phase. For most of ads phase, you're going to want to stay on the 3, as again there's entrapment. This entrapment cast will just this entrapment may just kill you if you are away from the 3. So just try and stay on the 3.
Are you serious?
But yeah, let me go over a couple important casts, and then I'm going to get started because I know it's getting late. First and most importantly is Fateful Words. This will place a debuff on you. You will either have the Spaghetti Monster debuff or the Falling Down the Stairs debuff. The Spaghetti Monster debuff is going to pull you towards the Stygimoloch Lord. It's very important that if you have the Spaghetti Monster debuff, you are standing in one of the notches on the outside of the ring. If you see this notch where I'm standing, you'll notice there's a little crest. Make sure you are standing on the outside notches if you have the Spaghetti Monster. If you have the Spaghetti Monster and you are not standing in one of these outside notches, you will immediately be pulled into the death wall. If you have the falling down the stairs mechanic, it is the exact opposite. You're going to want to stand on one of these inner notches and get knocked back. So again, if you have the Spaghetti Monster debuff, you're going to stand on the outside. If you have the falling down the stairs debuff, you're standing on the inside. If you were standing anywhere other than the correct position, you will get launched into the death wall.
Are you serious?
Are there any questions about Fateful Words? Okay. Again, tanks, your job is very simple. I marked you each with a number. You're gonna pull your ad towards that marker that you assigned. And then all the tanks who are not Dawn Goddess will be unfolding their traps. Zephy will sweep for Dawn. Very easy. Again, if you have any questions, please ask them. If you have any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, come stack up on the 3-way marker. Again, as a reminder, you need at least 5 charges of losses for the Queen. Okay, if you have less than 5 charges of your lost actions, please do not use any during this fight. I explained them. Okay, if you did not stand on a marker when we were setting up roles, you are all going to go to the 3-way marker. Anyone who was not assigned a role, please go to the 3-way marker at the start of the ads phase. So, these are the markers that I use to call Queen. I think these are the easiest to call literally every mechanic, because it's the only one where you can actually call literally every square.
Are you serious?
These are the battleship markers. I call positions by calling the column and row. For example, if I say to go to C4, you would come stand on the square where I am standing right now. This right here is C4, next to it is D4, over here is B4. This column, I will just call by the number, so I would say to just go to 4, or 3, or 2, or 1, and the top row I would just say to go to D, or C, or B, or A. There is literally never a time where you will need to go to that top left corner, so don't worry about it.
Are you serious?
That is how I call pretty much every mechanic, so I try and familiarize yourself with it. If you really can't follow, if you really cannot follow the callouts, I recommend you focus target me with the square over my head. There may be some mechanics that I just say follow the square. Usually I will stand where it's safe. There's some mechanics that you can't just follow, but pretty much everything you can follow. I'm just gonna go over 2 quick things as far as mechanics goes, and then we're gonna get started. Um, First and foremost, this is a caller check. Pretty much every mechanic can be called out for you. As long as you listen to callouts, you will be fine. Try and follow callouts as best as possible. I will call everything out for you, and as long as I don't call Relentless Play like I did the other night, we will clear.
Are you serious?
With that said, there is one big mechanic that I cannot personally do everything for you on, so it's very important that you know how to execute it, and that is Super Chess. During Super Chess, the boss will go untargetable. I will call, you will get 2 debuffs. You will get either a 2, a 3, or a 4. You will get 2 of these. You will need to add up these debuffs. You'll get a total of either 5, 6, or 7. If you get a 4, you're probably wrong. If you somehow got 8, you're also probably wrong. Again, you're gonna add these up. So for example, if you had a 2 and a 4, you would have a total of 6.
Are you serious?
I will then tell you where to stand based on your debuff total. For example, I might say something like 6s to 4, 7s to A4, 5s to 2, or sorry, 5s to 3. Again, I might say something like 6s to 4, 7s to A4, 5s to 3. I will not always say that, it just kind of depends on the pattern. But I will call out where each number will stand. I will then tell you a column to go up. So again, an example callout might be 5s to 3, 6s to A3, 7s to B3. We are walking up the number column. At that time, you will add up your debuffs, go to your position, and then walk up the number column once your debuff locks in. Very important thing to note. These debuffs will place dots above your heads when they are active. You should really look at the dots above your head and move that many squares. For example, if I had 3 dots above my head, I would move 1, 2, and then 3 squares and stop. It's very important that you stop moving once your numbers disappear. If you keep moving, you will get a big red spike above your head, and that will give you a doom stack. If you stay in that position for more than 3 seconds, you will just die. Please make sure that you are standing in the correct spot and not moving too far.
Are you serious?
The only other thing I have to go over is the light curtain. I asked everyone to bring a couple light curtains as long as you were rank 18. This fight is where they come in handy. Now, this is very important. You can drag these light curtains from your Lost Vines holster onto your hotbar. Please make sure you click and hold. Do not just click, it will just use your light curtain and you will be sad. I will be calling where orbs are. You will need to stand under orbs if you have a light curtain. Again, I highly recommend dragging them onto your hotbars. It will make everything easier. With that said, if you have any questions, please ask them. Otherwise, come join me on the B4 tile. That said, thank you all so much for coming. I love running DRS. I can't do DRS without other people who want to do DRS, though. Again, this is a group effort. Everyone did great. Thank you all so much for coming out. If you'd like to see more runs from across all of NA, we have this helpful little calendar. You can look for any upcoming runs on there.
Don't forget you're here forever.